Let's take a look at Bicolored Cast On. It's really just long tail cast on, but using two colours. I'm using my yarn triple in this example, and we start near the beginning of the yarns and we make a slip knot with both the yarns held together. The slip knot doesn't count as a stitch. We'll pop the slip knot onto the knitting needle and snuggle everything up, and that's our anchoring point to make a start. I'm going to consider my green yarn my light yarn and my orange yarn my dark yarn, and we need to have a light coloured stitch first of all. I'm going to get hold of it in my hand, then tuck my thumb and finger between the two yarns, holding the light yarn away from me. Then when I make a twist with this thumb that makes a little loop of the orange yarn, I can then knit the green yarn through the loop. That is traditional or normal long tail cast on. If you need a few practice stitches at the beginning, you can always drop these stitches off at the end. So it's make a twist, come underneath, knit the yarn through it, and then snuggle the stitch up. When you're ready to get going, we want to do a stitch from the left and then a stitch from the right. To do the stitch from the right, you just come across over both yarns, up from underneath, so that's the same kind of loop as before. Throw the yarn around the needle, normal rotation, anti-clockwise round the needle tip when viewed from the tip end. Hook that stitch through, it's a bit like purling, and then snuggle up the green yarn. Don't try spacing these stitches too far apart. So these stitches, the slip knot and those first two, I'm going to consider junk. We'll drop those later. This is my first pair of stitches. So one from the thumb and knit it up. Then come to the other side of the index finger, up into the loop, and purl that dark yarn through so that we make alternating colour stitches, and we snuggle it nicely underneath the knitting needle. It helps if you keep a bit of tension on both yarns, and I'm deliberately not letting these get spaced too far apart because I don't want my beginning edge to flare. I'm not making them tight, but I'm not spacing them along the needle as I easily could do. I'm making sure they're right next door to the one before. Keep on going, whoops, keep on going like this, alternating the stitches until you have 24 pairs. If you need to do a few extra pairs, then you can always dump them off at this end of the needle when you've done row 1. Having the two colours makes things a lot easier. If you want a green stitch, you go into the orange loop. If you want an orange stitch, you go into the green loop. And this is also called the knit and purl long tail cast on, because coming in from here and taking the stitch away from you is very much like purling a stitch. When I came to check my edge, I've got my beginning junk stitches, and there I've done 2 orange stitches side by side, so I can just forget about this lot and count from this point here, because you do want to make sure they're properly alternating. So, doing my final count, I want my first stitch of my row to be a light coloured stitch, so I'm going to have to ignore all that lot and count my pairs of stitches. 1, 2, 3, 6, 22, 23, 24. And one of the nice things about doing long tail cast on using these 2 yarns is the fact that we don't have to calculate how much of a tail, because we're working towards the ball of yarn that's begun at the tail end at the beginning of the cast on. Now I'm ready for row 1.